Yeah, sorry about that.
Take your right arm all the way through your arm, perhaps even across. You take multiple breaths here. Yeah. If you have any stickiness along the rib cage, just recognize where it's at on this side. It'll be different on the second. And really slowly, take your arm down, bring your knees back to middle. You can use your left elbow to push you up, but then bring your knees right back over your pelvis so that the eye of your elbow is long. And cascade your knees up and over towards the right. And again, rather than left arm directly to the side like we would at the end of class, for today's practice, we'll start with your arm up and overhead, more like a mountain pose stretch. You may need to activate your arm. You may need to position your palm a little differently on the side than you did on the first. You may have a different experience, but rather than judge good or bad, right and left, start to think about how the two sides of your body work together to accomplish the task of the day. All right, and really gently come back to the center. Take your block over towards the side. And then just sway a little side to side. Massage out the muscles that come across the small of your back. And cut behind your thighs and start to rock and roll the distance of your backbone. Your ankles, plant your palms, and come to a table position. So we'll do a little bit of cow and cat, but then we'll do a little bit of side sway of your hips and put the two together. So push down into your fingertips, and you can even lift the base of your palm if that's conducive to giving you a little more power in your forearms. But drop your belly and lift up through your chest. Feel like your elbows are working back towards your hip points. Take a long breath in. And then exhale, chin to your chest. Round and curl your back. Push your yoga mat away. And feel sort of a stretch, not just from right to left side body, but from your tail tip to your crown. You take that a few times through. And then come to a neutral position. So point your tail tip towards the wall behind you. Drift your hips over towards the right. Get a stretch in your outer right hip. You can even push more brightly with your left palm. And then come the opposite direction. So hips over towards the left. Push with your right arm. You get a little stretch into your outer glute tissue. And this is actually the tissue that commonly becomes lengthy and tired. We're just waking it up with some blood flow. And then we'll do what we call a barrel roll. So imagine that you're inside of a root beer barrel and then use your whole torso, including a bend in your arms, to round out. It's like a combination of that hip sway and also cow and cat. And when you do 3 or 4 in that direction, go the opposite way. Notice how your ribs articulate differently from the right to the left. And then push down into your palms, tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Tuck your hips up nice and high. And take a full breath in, and then a slow breath out. One more time, inhale. Easy exhale. Now walk your toes up towards the top of your space. Ragdoll pose. You can catch your opposite elbows and sway a little side to side. If it feels better to keep your palms on the ground, that's super okay as well. And then bring your feet either all the way to touch or keep your feet underneath your hip bones. Unroll your back, one bone at a time. When you come all the way up, strip your shoulders a time or two. And then we'll take a couple of sun salutes, but we'll pit stop along the way. So inhale your hands up and overhead. And when you push down all the way into your feet, without moving your feet at all, kick your heels to the right and to the left so that your outer glutes get really strong. And then take another breath in. Exhale, right palm down, left arm high. So feel like you're pushing your right hand almost onto like a mid-thigh height table. And then reach through your left side body so that you get some length all the way through your torso. Come back to center, breathe in. Exhale up and over the opposite right. So keep your rib cage on the left, off of your hip bone on the left. And continue to brightly yearn your right palm all the way up to the ceiling. Come back to center, breathe in. On your exhale, take a small backward bend. Uplift through your chest. Okay, well now it's just funny because now I'm losing back leg too. I'm gonna get a lantern. Inhale, rise up, mountain pose. Exhale, forward fold over your legs. So this forward fold will feel different than your first forward fold, just because your thighs are closer together than they are apart. And then inhale, halfway lift, lengthen out. And as you're here, consider halfway lift the opportunity to be halfway between standing and folding. Breathe in. Exhale, ball pose, round and curl. So come up really tall to the tips of your toes, and then hollow out your belly and tuck your tail down towards your heels. We'll take that just a couple times through, breath to movement. So drop your feet. Inhale, rise up, mountain pose. Exhale, side stretch, up and over to the right. Back to center, big breath in. Up and over to the left, big breath out. Inhale, back to middle. Exhale, backward bend. So cactus your arms and uplift through your chest. Even here, you're stretching out through the front of your hip flexors. Inhale, mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, breathe in. Crouch and curl, breathe out. So this time, walk your fingers forward so that even the pits of your arms are opened where your arm bones are away from your trunk. Now drop your heels down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your palms, step back, high plank pose. So drop down to your knees just so that you can maneuver your blanket, your bolster, or bunch up your mat so that you've got a little cushion for your knees as we proceed. So come to downward facing dog, and then you can always adjust that blanket as needed as we go. So push down into your left foot, inhale your right leg high, and be really specific with how we do this curl. So curl your right heel into your glute. Flex your right toes into your shin, and then point your right knee up and towards the ceiling. You can drop your left heel a little closer to the ground if need be. This will give you some opportunity to get more inner thigh stretch. And then you can point through your toe as it goes towards the ceiling and curl through your heel as it comes back down. You can take that a few times through. And then re-rotate your right hip towards the ground, breathe in. Exhale, low lunge. So place your right foot next to your right hand. Take the opportunity to reposition your blanket so it comes underneath your left leg. And then take your right foot, just for this time, up and over to the right so that you're at an angle. And then sort of bend in and out of your forward thigh. So things to recognize, you can definitely just move the body in concert, right? Everything moves together without really thinking about it, but I'm asking you to push into your heel when you lengthen your leg, and then feel like you're pulling your heel back toward your left knee when you bend your knee. And then take that a few times on purpose, and we'll see how that plays in once we start to do standing poses. All right, just take one more time. And when you drop as low as is comfortable in your hips, take your right hand to your right thigh, take your left hand right up towards the ceiling again. And just like Suryanamaskar 8, lean up and over towards the right. So the sensation here, deep into the psoas, you could feel it all the way up into your belly, and you could feel it all the way down to your inner left thigh. You just find that 50% sensation rather than that bigger, grander 70, 80, 90%. And then really slowly come back up. Take your hands to the ground and toe heel your right foot to the middle of your mat. Here's where we pivot. Take your back knee and pivot so that your shin bone is parallel to the short edge of your mat. I'm not sure how much light you're getting on this, but this will give you a different sensation. So your right toes point towards the right of the mat and your left toes towards the back side wall. And then same thing, bend in and out. Sometimes you've heard this called maybe Captain Morgan's pose, because it's like you're a pirate, right? Pirates of the Caribbean kind of thing when you're at Disneyland. But still work the same effort of driving in and out with your heel and keep your torso nice and high. All right, and then I'm gonna pivot one more time. When you bend down, find the place where your knee makes a nice plumb line up and over your ankle. And as I pivot, this is just to show you that with the inclination to buckle the knee in, you can place your palm either high on a block or onto the ground, but squeeze your knee in towards your arm. So because you're supported, you can play around with this, right? Internal rotation of the leg, external rotation of the leg, but you want to be able to find a really firm contact by way of your right glute muscles to compress and close between your arm and your thigh. And we're just going to hold that statically, the same way we would high plank. Here for 4. Here for 3, 2, and 1. Gently release. And then take your left foot down to the ground, tuck it under. Inhale your right leg high, 3-legged down dog. Turn out through your hip again, just like you did at the beginning. And when you find downward facing dog, recognize the difference between your right and your left side. It may be that you have a lot more blood flow and perhaps you feel a little more limber there. And then we'll do the same on the left. So inhale your left leg high, flex your toes in towards your shin, curl your heel in towards your butt, and then point your left knee up towards the ceiling. So these are all things that you probably do in your regular class, but now picking them apart. You can turn out circles with your knee, or you can bend and extend out through your leg. Your outer glute tissue, just by way of bringing your knee and your toes ceiling wide, already turning on super strong. And then redirect your hip down towards the ground, breathe in. Exhale, low lunge. Place your foot next to your left palm and bring your right knee down to the ground. So again, just for the setup, we'll go like this. Move your foot over and up, and then bend a couple times, facing the short edge of your mat. So allow your body to do what it will initially. And then after you have that dialed in, then be small. So push into your heel and your low leg coming into the lunge. All right, now the very next time that you're down into a bend, place your left palm onto your left thigh, move your right hand up towards the ceiling, and then lift up and over towards the left. So just a little side bend like we did in Sun Salute A. You may feel more or less sensation on this side. So just look for an equal-ish experience. It does not have to be a matched pair. It makes me smile when I think about that little meme that talks about eyebrows, like they're supposed to be cousins, not twin sisters. That's kind of true for your whole self. All right, and then gently rise back up. Place your left foot into the middle of the mat, and then you'll pivot your right foot. This is why the cushion is nice on the knee. And then you will take a few bends in and out of your left leg. Feel a different stretch sensation into your inner thigh. And because of the pivot of your back leg, believe it or not, is kind of the same as your leg is in Warrior 2 and extended side ankle, you may already start to feel the outer part of your right leg bone working as well. All right, now if you're using a tool or if you're putting your hand to the floor, place it outside of your left ankle toe. And then exaggerate the draw of your knee away, so there's a little internal roll, and then press it back so that there's a pressure between your forearm and your shin. And take that a few times just to feel. So this is when your teacher says, Push down into your foot, direct your knee towards your pinky toe. It's because commonly the knee will buckle in towards your big toe. And it happens on both thighs. I find that it happens in my students more on their non-dominant leg. So for me, I'm right-handed. That means this leg is the culprit. All right, and then we'll hold. So once you find the contact, get some pressure into your outer left glute. You can pivot your left ribs under you so that your rib cage starts to face over towards the right side of your mat. Just here for 2. And for 1. Gently release your block, re-pivot your back knee, plant your palms, and you'll 3-legged down dog. And then take any sort of order movement that lets you inventory and scan how are your feet doing after that. And we'll put some of those things together in a more familiar flow like you would see in the C1 class. So inhale, look forward. Halfway lift your back, breathe in. Forward fold your spine, breathe up. Bend really low into your seat. Inhale, chair pose, Utkatasana. Take your hands directly out of your shoulders and use the push of your palms to come a little deeper into your seat. You take a long breath in and kick your heels to the right and to the left like you did in mountain pose and start to fire up the muscles right in your outer glutes. Take one more inhale. Forward fold, exhale. Halfway lift, breathe in. Palms to the mat, high and low plank, breathe out. Inhale, upward facing dog and pause here. Push down into your palms, firm up through your glutes and lift up through the base of your chin. 1 inhale. And exhale, downward facing dog. All right, inhale your right leg high, 3-legged down dog kick. Exhale, curl forward, low lunge. So keep your foot closer to your right hand at the center of your mat. Push down into your right heel like you did on our preview. Inhale, rise up. Crescent pose towards the front. So first time in crescent pose, but not the first time in a lunge. You can still bend in and out of your back leg. However, once you find your landing point, then work onto this position, lift your shoulders sharp up and the ribs go wide. You can take your arms wider, like the letter Y. And as you lunge into your right leg, push your left heel towards the wall behind you until you feel your inner left knee spin up just a little bit. Breathe in. Exhale, open twist. Take your right arm back, your left arm forward. Work your knuckles towards the wall behind you. And just a little smidge bit, let your left rib cage come towards your right outer thigh. You take a big breath in, come back to crescent pose. On your exhale, warrior 2. So pause here, put your hands to your hips, and then do the same thing you did on your knee. Push away and bend in. Okay, and bend in. And then take a look at your back foot. You want to have your pinky toe parallel to the short edge of your mat. You can also take your left hand and maneuver your left hip forward towards the upper left-hand corner of your space just a little so that your right hip sort of receives the socket of your hip and your leg a little tighter. Then move your right rib cage towards the long edge of your mat because you've opened up through your trunk and direct all of your attention to keeping your knee over your second and third toe. That's a lot to say, right? You take a big breath in and a slow breath out. All right, inhale, reverse warrior. So side body stretch, just like we did in Sun Flu Day. Okay? Make a lot of length through your trunk. Keep a lot of length between your left rib and your left hip. Breathe in. Exhale, extended side angle. So right arm down and left arm can either come directly up, or if it's helpful for today's practice, start with your left fingers behind your left ear. Point your left elbow towards the ceiling, kind of like you did with your knee in down dog kick, and then fly your arm nice and high. If it feels better in your shoulder to get a longer stretch, you can also sweep your hand up and overhead. So keep your right ribs rolling under and take a look down and make sure your right knee is over your 2 middle toes. Now here's the push of your heel again. Inhale, reverse triangle. Lift up your right hand, gaze over your right foot, and feel like your outer thigh is rolling behind you at your hip rather than your knee. Breathe in. Exhale, palms to the mat, high to low plank, or feel free to just hold high plank. Inhale, up dog or back to plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. All right, second side. Inhale your left leg back and far. Flex your toes and exhale, round forward, low lunge. Switch. Drive down into your forward heel. Inhale, rise up, Crescent Pose, Anjaneyasana. Now, as you're here, you can again bend in and out of that back leg just to feel what's available. Those of you that take a lot of yoga, you may or may not know that this Crescent Pose is sort of the modification for Warrior One pose where your heel touches the ground. So spend a little time curious about the placement of your pelvis. Take your arms up and overhead. If you feel your ribs spread out wide in the front, sort of spill your hips forward, feel free to take your arms wide, just like the first side. Breathe in. Keep it on your exhale, open twist. So a lot of balance happening here. Direct your right ribs towards your left ribs. Feel a connection with both of your feet. And feel free to be stronger in your back leg than in your forward leg, just to share the workload of your lunge. Inhale back to center. And then exhale, Warrior Two. So again, hands to your hips because your arms have been up for a while. And to just recommit and re-identify how the push and pull feels in the side-facing pose. So as you kick your heel away, flex through your quad, and as you bend into your knee, flex through your hamstring. And then when you find your settling point, your sustainable lunge, take your right hand and roll your right hip a little towards the upper right-hand corner of the mat. Take your left hand and work your left side rib cage toward the long edge of your mat and flex your arms out really wide. And take a breath in and settle deeper on the breath out. All right, inhale, reverse warrior, lift and lengthen. So you keep the lunge, gaze over your knee, make sure it's in cooperation, and then it's not buckling in towards your big toe now. Breathe in for space. Exhale, extended side angle. Especially in the setup, friends, I like the higher up setting. You are, of course, welcome to put your hand down to the floor, to the block, but start with your right fingers behind your right ear and spin your right elbow up towards the ceiling. Flat right hand up towards the sky. Smooth your tail tip down towards your back heel. Stay here or outreach your hand up and overhead to get a longer sensation from your right ankle bone to your fingertips. Now push into your left heel. Inhale, reverse triangle, up, high, and back. So between the hip flexors of the latissimus muscles, this pose in particular is where your knee will try to swivel forward. So feel your outer glute muscles work to bring your knee up and over your toe. Breathe in. Exhale, palms to the mat. High to half plank. Inhale, up, dog, or back to plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. We'll put those things together. Where breath and movement. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, step ahead, top of your mat. Halfway forward fold, breathe out. Bend your knees, inhale, chair pose. Palms to the floor, high to low plank, exhale. Inhale, up dog or plank pose. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, your right heel high. Exhale, step forward, lunge. Inhale, rise up, crescent pose. Exhale, open twist. Breathe in, back to center. Breathe out, warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior. Extended side angle. Inhale, reverse triangle, high, back, and far. Exhale, palms to the floor, high to low plank, chaturanga. Inhale, up dog or plank pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale your left leg high. Exhale, curl ahead, low lunge. Lift up, crescent pose, Anjaneyasana. Exhale, open twist. Breathe in, back to center. Breathe out, warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior. Keep your leg in place. Exhale, extended side angle up and overhead. Inhale, reverse triangle. Exhale, palms to the mat, high to low plank. Inhale, upward facing dog. Friends. Exhale, downward facing dog. Stay here on the breath in. Stay here on the breath out. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, step ahead, top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Bend your knees low, inhale, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Palms to the floor, high to low plank for your exhale. Inhale, up dog or plank pose. Exhale, down dog. Inhale your right leg high. Exhale, come forward, lunge. Inhale, high crescent, push into your right heel. Exhale, open twist. Full breath in, back to center, crescent. Full breath out, warrior two. Inhale, reverse warrior. Exhale, sweep forward, extended side angle. Inhale, reverse triangle, high and back. Exhale, palms to the floor, high to low plank. Inhale, up dog or plank pose. Exhale, down dog. All right, last time like that. Inhale your left leg high. Exhale, curl in lunge. Inhale, lift up, crescent pose. Exhale, open twist. Full breath in, back to center. Full breath out, warrior two. Inhale, reverse. Exhale, extended side angle. Drive your left heel strong. Inhale, reverse triangle. Exhale, palms to the floor, high to low plank, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Nice, friends. Take a full inhale and a slow exhale. Yeah. One more time, breathe in and out. All right, gently walk forward. And when you get to the top of your mat, push down into your feet. They can be the distance of your hips or all the way with your big toe knuckles to touch. And uncurl your spine. I think we are getting to the point where we're almost working with the silhouette here. So let's see if lifting the lights will be good. We'll work into tree pose. It is a side-facing forward pose to the extent that we're using the same muscles. So I'll give you a little bit of a side view first. So take your hands to your hips and look down at your left foot and make sure that your knee is right over the middle of your two center toes. Start with your knee, the height of your pelvis. You can push palm to thigh, thigh to palm, and you'll feel your belly muscles activate across. But then with your hands to your hips, come in a little tighter. So work your hip flexor. This is the same muscle group that we use to do the step through to low lunge. Now, from that really high place with your knee, then rotate open, externally rotate, so your knee points over to the right to the degree that it will, and put your right heel inside your left leg. If you're working on balance, or if you're feeling unstable in the gym room, by all means, you can put your toe down by your ankle, or reach down with your right hand and slide your right heel up high onto your left inner thigh. Now take your right hand as a target behind your right knee, and just like you did with the block, work your knee towards your palm. So you're not pushing open your thigh, you're actually using your butt muscles to pull your knee towards your palm, and at the same time, direct your right hip bone forward in line with your left. You're welcome to stay right here, or hands to your chest. Stay here, or hands overhead. Additionally, you can also take your arms out wide, and you can think about the old school like circus trapeze artists and the way that they use the beam to help balance. I like arms out wide just for the sake of, I can take my pinky fingers towards the wall behind with a relative amount of ease. Perhaps not with my knee moving it in the same direction towards the wall behind. One more breath. And then exhale, hands to your heart, knee forward. Step your feet out wider than your hips. So imagine you're playing football and you're coming down to hike the ball. Instead of simply hiking the ball, straighten out through your left leg, bend into your right knee. So like a crooked football hike, just to get some stretch sensation into the muscle group that we just used so acutely. Also takes a little pressure off of your standing ankle. All right, slowly push into your feet, roll up and rise, and then we'll do that on the second side. Let's see if I can turn a little bit this way so you can see more of that. Push down into your foot. Make sure your hip bone, your knee, and your two little toes are where they should be. And start with just lift your leg to the height of your pelvis. Push your palm to thigh, thigh to palm. From this space, pull with your hip flexor so that your knee comes up really tall. And then externally rotate. So almost like you're opening the door that is your leg. And then pull your heel to your glute. Place it inside your right thigh, maybe all the way down to your right ankle. Good. You can work that glute tissue regardless of, if you want it high, reach down with your left foot closer towards your groin, and then use your left hand as the target to bring your knee a little closer towards your palm space. Now it is tempting to let this twist happen either at your right hip or at your rib cage. So make you've got both of your shoulders, each of your hips pointing forward. Smooth your tailbone towards the back of your right knee. Layer on if you did with your palms. And even here, expect similarities to be rare and far between your right string and your left string, both on your hand high as you come out wide. It's not better than. Right, and then really jump, and then take that little wide stand so that you're not quite in a wide-legged fold, but you're also wide in a hip distance. Come forward like you're looking for the football and bend into your left leg. Push into your right foot. Get some relief and stretch through your outer left glute. Full breath in and slow breath out. All right, take your palms down to the floor, lift your bottom high, and then rise up one digit at a time. If you're facing the side of the mat like I was, come back to the short edge, otherwise you're over it. Inhale, mountain pose. Exhale, small backward. Lift. Oh, one was right. Exhale, forward fold. Uttanasana. Halfway lift. Breathe in. Exhale, palms to the mat. High to low plank. Upward facing dog or back to plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. All right. We will proceed. Inhale your right leg high. Exhale, step forward, low lunge. Okay. Take your back heel down to the ground at about a 45-degree angle. So you're looking for not warrior two legs, but warrior one legs. Push into your right heel to rise, and then you've got to check it out. So your left hip and your right hip probably don't match. Probably your left hip is closer to the wall behind you, so you can do a couple things. We've opened up the trunk, so you can either rotate your rib cage forward, lift your arms overhead, or if you want your left hip forward some, you can walk your right foot over to the right. A lot of this posture is going to be dictated by how much flexion happens at the ankle and how much stretch happens at your calf. So the most important thing is that your foot, your knee, and your hip all point towards the same direction. And then you can lift your hands to the degree that it makes sense. Recall that I said this is the pose progression from Crescent. So you might have a really similar stretch sensation here as you did in lunge, as you did in Crescent, and most especially as when you lift it up and over towards the right. Take a breath in. And then on your exhale, warrior two. So if you move your foot, you'll need to put it back. And then widen out. Now, hands to your hips. And this time, you'll go from your hips level to your right hip down. So triangle pose is a dramatic pull of your right hip bone towards the ground and reach super far forward. Reach as far forward as you can go and let your wrist just drop where it will. When your wrist is under your shoulder, make a U grip with your hand so that your thumb is on the inside of your calf and your forefingers are on the outside. And to keep from hyperextending in your knee, push your shin into your palm, and then just like prior, fingers behind your left ear, spin your left elbow up towards the ceiling. Then take your left fingers up towards the sky. Rotate your right rib cage towards the left side of your yoga mat, and where your gaze falls is where is comfortable in your neck. Take a long breath in. Now push into your heel, in pose, and either hands to your hips or with your back nice and wide, slow forward fold up and over your thighs. So you may have a very, very unique experience, right to left side hip here. From the side profile, friends, when we're stretching the hamstrings, here's what we're looking for. If you could see your bottom without any flesh, you're looking for the middle of your leg bone to be over top the middle of your ankle bone. If you're way back here, like bottom towards the back side of the mat, then you might feel that hamstring stretch either in your glutes or behind your knee. So by coming forward, and especially by coming forward with a bend in your knees so that your trunk touches your thighs, then you can flex your quads, which you've already done a dozen times in this class, and target the sensation right in the middle of your hamstring. I like hands to the ground. Some of you are going to prefer to take a grip behind your back and do a little shoulder stretch. All of that is viable. All right, take your arms really wide. Inhale, rest. Exhale, warrior two. Take a full breath in. Exhale, palms to the mat. Hide a low plank, or feel free to just hold high plank. Up dog or plank pose if you're finding flow. And then downward facing dog. All right, we'll do that on the second side. I'm just going to do a 180 turn to make it easier to talk to you. Inhale your left.
Alright guys, class looks like it's being disrupted. If I remember correctly, she's not there. Okay, class was disrupted, I think. But I think it was like this. So I'll come back soon.
If you're repositioning through your feet into warrior two stance, take up a lot of space. And then hands to your hips and lengthen out through your left leg. Tip your left pelvic bone down so that your right hip comes high and outreach all the way up and over your left leg. Then drop your arm so that your wrist falls just below your shoulder and make the same U grip so that your thumb is on the inside and your fingers are on the outside. Touch your right fingers behind your right ear and swivel pivot your elbow up towards the ceiling. And take your right palm all the way up to the sky. And take a few breaths just to feel out your body in space. Ideally, you feel like you can lean back enough that your left shoulder and your right shoulder would touch the wall behind you. if your left hip was in contact with the wall on the side of your mat, even if that's all the way across the room. All right, slow and steady. Push into your left heel. Inhale, rise. Pivot your toes, so all 10 toes point towards the short edges or the long edges of your mat. Broaden out from wrist to wrist. Breathe in. And then exhale, wide leg forward fold. And take some time here just to find a similar stretch. Really nice, friends. Emily, that's great positioning. I can see exactly where your hip is over your ankle. Feel free to take your head slowly from shoulder to shoulder. Breathe in and out. All right, and then gently inhale, rise. Exhale, warrior two, back to the top of your space. Full breath in. Exhale, palms to the mat, high to half plank, chaturanga dandasana. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. All right, so we'll do a little more to support the hips. Go ahead and come down to your knees, take a little water and towel, make sure that you've got props and tools near you, if that's gonna be helpful for you. So the thing to consider is that pigeon pose is like that pose where people are like, ooh, here we go, like pigeon pose, everything's downhill from there. I like pigeon pose because it stretches out the piriformis and it gets you ready for your back bends. That being said, it also stretches the same muscles. They get stretched when you're waiting at the bus stop. They get stretched when you're stirring a pot at the stove. So sometimes we look for other ways to stretch those muscles or to be very targeted in how we stretch those muscles. So come back to down dog. I'll actually come to the angle side so that we can talk about the placement of pigeon pose. But inhale your right heel high, and then exhale half pigeon. Place your right knee outside of your right wrist, and let your right ankle come up and underneath your pelvis or even over towards your left hip bone. So for a lot of us, our hips won't come all the way down to the ground in this pose, and there's ways that you can support. Most of you have probably heard, take the block underneath your right side butt, and then slowly work your way down, if you will. What you may not have heard is that you can also take that block underneath your left hip so that the block touches your right heel and your left hip bone. And what this does is that for most of us, it's gonna put even stretch from hip to hip on the back of your body when you lower down. So you can try that on, and it might feel great. And it also might feel like nothing, right? If you've got a lot of flexibility there, it might actually take you out of sensation. So the alternate that I would offer is roll onto your right side butt, take your left leg long, and then take the figure four so that your right ankle is over your left thigh, not necessarily your right knee. And then from here, what you have space and opportunity to do is push down into your palms with your left foot, lift your bottom, and then sort of tuck your tail back so that you bring your shin bone a little closer towards your chest. And what's great about that is you can decide how spicy that should be. The further your heel is away from your body, the less sensation you're gonna have. But you might be brightly aware of where the stretch is in a way that pigeon pose doesn't always get us. You can also, if you've got a little knot on that side or the other, you can roll because you're upright. Do a little self-assist there. All right. And then slow and steady. If you're in pigeon pose, push to your palms, tuck your back toes, and inhale three-legged down dog. Feel free to open up through your hip, come to that familiar place and just check in. But do find downward facing dog between sides. If you came to the seated figure four, you can just uncross your legs and we'll catch up on the other side. You'll still feel the sensation of difference, right to left, even if you don't make it to down dog. Inhale your left leg high if you're taking pigeon. Exhale your left knee outside of your left wrist. So recognize that no part of me is saying put your shin parallel to the short edge of your back. That is rare that that's advantageous for the ligaments in your knee. But do check it out, see if it feels good to bolster up. Sometimes a blanket, sometimes a block, sometimes a book. Whether it's on the left side or, again, on the right side, where you can slip the block between your heel and your thigh. Here's where it kind of matters, though. A cork block like this will dig into your quadricep muscle. It's not the most yummy sensation. So a softer block, like a foam block, like you would get at the studio, or a yoga blanket, couch cushion, those are all agreeable. And if you're taking the alternate, you'll roll onto your hip, swing your right leg forward, figure 4 up and over your thigh. And then this is what I like. You can take your fingers, push down, and you can sort of bucket your hips back so that your chest is closer and upright next to your shin. When you flex your toes in towards your shin, what that does is I'm going to just put it as it is. It plumps up the muscle between your calf and your hamstring so that there isn't much wiggle room in the joint of your knee. If you decide to roll a little side to side, especially my cycling friends, right? Like if you ride a bike indoors or outdoors, you might find some really crunchy stuff into what they call your glute med, which is what we've been targeting. And your piriformis, which is a sacral stabilizer between that triangular bone at your back to your outer hip. It's a common place to get fiercely strong with your other chosen activities. All right, really slowly. If you're in pigeon, work your way back up to your palms. If you're in seated 4, let's still come and join together in downward facing dog. So once you get there, shake your hips a little side to side like we did in table pose. Way back when, at the beginning of the hour. Feel free to come up to one set of toes and then the other. And then if your hands are especially close to the top edge of your yoga mat, walk your dog backwards so we can do a little spine strengthening here. Inhale, shift forward, high plank. And then either from your toes or from your knees, exhale, slow lower down, chest and belly to the mat. All right. Keep your hands where they are, or for today's practice, if you want to move your fingertips to the floor outside of your yoga mat, both are perfect. Direct your elbows back, empty out your air, and on your inhale, uplift through your chest. Push into your fingertips or push into your palms, but direct your elbows towards your back lying body and smooth your tail tip towards the very back of your knees. Push more into your pinky toes than your big toes, but keep all of your toes touching the floor and feel how that lifts your inner thighs a little. Breathe in and exhale, lower down. Gaze over your right shoulder. Let your thumbs come next to your side, your pinkies come out. Then you can shake a little side to side. All right. We'll take another similar. So you can do the very same pose or just change up the arms, or simply flip your palms, work your thumbs up so that your pinky fingers are closer to the mat than your thumbs are. And then this time you'll lift up through your heels and the backs of your palms. Empty out your breath. Inhale, locust pose. Uplift from your chest and from your shins. Perhaps you'll push through your toes so brightly that your thighs will rise, but that's secondary. Think about this as the counter pose, the antithesis to how we sit most of the day, and allow your inner and outer thighs to provide structure to what's happening on the front and back of your legs. Breathe in and exhale, lower down. Gaze over your left shoulder. You can let your palms just come down to the ground, or you can again rotate thumbs in, pinkies out. All right. Take your chin in right to the floor. Push down into your palms and slowly rise. So interesting enough, when we work on outer hips and inner thighs, it makes for a stronger back bend. So take a look at your toes. If they're together, like they are in child's pose, separate so that your heels and your shins come directly out of your leg bones. And just try it on for today's practice. Resist the urge to tuck your toes, but instead really embed down into your shins. Find the bony prominence on the front of your hips and draw a half circle around your glutes. Right where that line is, let that be where the base of your hand is. So it's kind of in the middle of your butt rather than up high to your back. Smooth your tailbone down, squeeze the eye of your elbow together. Take a big breath in, lift up through your chest. On your exhale, Camel Pose, Instructor. You don't have to go especially far back, but find your rib cage in towards your middle, your hip bones up towards your navel, your tailbone down towards your yoga mat. And without moving anything, feel like you're kicking your knees right and left the way you did your feet in the postures previous at the start and the center of class. Breathe in, and on your exhale, slowly rise. Now touch your toes, part your knees, settle your bottom down onto your heels. Just take a few breaths. It's a super solid place to passively align your spine. You can stay here, or we'll take a counter stretch. Cross over your ankles, settle your bottom to the floor. We'll take one of two forward folds. So you can, with straight legs, put your heels toward the top of your mat. When you start to work forward, if where you feel sensation first is the back of your legs rather than the small of your back, usually a good indicator that that wide diamond that we started in is advantageous. So bring the soles of your feet together, get your knees wide, and just like the other fold, lift up through your chest first, and then just fold part way down. So even if it's in your practice to bury your forehead onto your toes, only go halfway. 50% sensation, really specific, low of your ribs and high of your hips to counter your backward bends. Breathe in and out. And gently rise, put your feet to the floor, sweep your butt forward a little bit and roll down. So here's the most important part, just for this little segment of class. We opened the thighs and we strengthened the outer glutes. So by the time you get to Shavasana, we have to do the opposite. So take your right leg over your left leg, squeeze your inner thighs, and drop your two knees over towards the left. This time, you can take your right arm out to the side rather than overhead. Keep a little tenacity in the muscles between your thighs so that you're activating your adductor muscles, and you're getting a little soft stretch across your outer glutes. And believe me, those of you that have tight IT bands, I know there's nothing soft about this stretch, but Shavasana will make up for it. Okay, gently back to center. Bring your two knees into your chest just to normalize your back. Put your right foot down and cross your left leg up and over. Squeeze your inner thighs together in an eagle wrap, and then drop your two knees over to the right. Let your left arm come out wide of your body. Sometimes just holding on to the tension from the pelvis to the knees in a twist like this can create a sense of security in the base of your body so that your upper body can spiral a little more completely. All right, slow back to center. Bring your knees into your heart. Compress your thighs right up on top of your belly. Let your tail tip to your crown be heavy to the floor. Breathe in. Exhale, final rest, Shavasana. Take your heels really wide. Take your arms really wide. And allow yourself the space of true relaxation by way of your breath. We're right on time. So let me hold that space. And you become enamored with the heaviness of your bones, the suppleness of your muscles, and the lightness of your breath. a little more time this evening to stay at your rest. Don't move a muscle. Stay right where you are. If you're ready to rise, start by bringing your breath down into your belly. And then rotate your toes to the center and your pinky toes alternatively to the edge. And just windshield wiper, perhaps at your ankle, maybe at your knee, ideally all the way up at the socket of your hip. And then take a long body stretch, outreach your arms long overhead. And gentle roll to a single side, supported fetal pose. And then press up to a seat, palms at your heart, onto the mudra. Gesture of finding balance, in this case, between the inner and the outer legs, but oftentimes balance between upper and knees, on and off the mat. Bow your head to your heart to seal in your efforts. And then lift your chin and lift your gaze. Namaste. Friends, the grit and tenacity for you all to stay in and out of power with me is commendable. I can't tell you that that's the first time that I've ever had a power outage, but it was definitely in person in the studio and not dependent on technology. So thanks for being with me. If you have questions about the poses or about any of the class offerings, I'm here. So please feel free to come off mute. Chat's gonna be a little more difficult because I still have you dialed into my phone rather than my device, but I'm happy to stay and support. And do you practice in person in the studios?
So I actually started doing yoga during COVID, so I've primarily done yoga virtually, and I started doing yoga with
Alright guys, that was class, Core Power Yoga. I'll put the link in the description if you guys need to apply. I'm actually just getting a free 2-week membership, like I said, but I just wanted to show you guys a different type of workout that I do. So that's it.